A 59-year-old man who once voted for Donald Trump in 2016 is in custody after he fired shots on Sunday afternoon in what the FBI is calling an apparent attempted assassination of Donald Trump at his golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, this is 2 months after an attempt on Trump's life at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. Trump, who was rushed to safety during the incident, said in a Truth Social post Sunday night that it was certainly an interesting day. He also thanked Secret Service and law enforcement for what he said, a job that was absolutely outstanding. Now, the Secret Service is facing new scrutiny after this gunman was within range of Trump for the second time in less than 10 weeks. The second time in less than 10 weeks that someone has attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. And the Secret Service seemingly caught flat-footed. This is raising concerns about whether this protective agency is stretched too thin in a politically polarized nation where too many people have access to too many guns. And now, at 18 years old, Grace Fisher will vote in her first presidential election in November. She, along with other survivors of the dreadful Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting of December 2012, are either turning 18 or have already turned 18. She said in a recent interview that this is a huge turning point in our lives. She was 6 years old when a gunman killed 20 first graders and 6 educators at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. Since 2013, at least 122 people have been killed by gunfire in 64 planned school shootings. Most recently, on September 4th, 2 students and 2 teachers were killed at Georgia's Appalachian High School. And that suspect was 14 years old. He had an AR-15 style rifle. On Thursday of last week, the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence said guns were the leading cause of death among children and teens, killing more people ages 1 to 17 in the U.S. than car crashes and cancer. And this is the 3rd year in a row. And Springfield, Ohio is a town on edge. It's been 5 days since it was thrust into the national spotlight by baseless and too many racist rumors of Haitian residents killing and eating wildlife and pets. And its economic comeback has been dramatically overshadowed by tensions that once rarely reached beyond city council meetings. The city has been forced to close schools, city hall, and other municipal buildings because of bomb threats and safety fears tied to rumors, and Haitian immigrants are afraid to leave their homes because of anger directed at them. And a divided House Republicans stumbled last week in their effort to pass Speaker Mike Johnson's bill to fund the government. They'll take another crack at a stopgap funding measure this week with just 15 days remaining until money runs out, and growing concerns about a federal government shutdown, including among top Republicans who worry about the political fallout that their party will face so close to the November 5th election. And more than a dozen Republicans who worked for former President Ronald Reagan announced their endorsement of Kamala Harris. President Ronald Reagan famously spoke about a time for choosing. This is in a statement made by this group. They went on to say that Reagan said, while the group went on to say that although Reagan is not here to experience this current moment, those who work for him in the White House, in his administration, in campaigns, and on his personal staff know that he would join them in supporting the Harris-Walz ticket. And a super PAC that Elon Musk helped create has ramped up its spending on behalf of Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump, splashing out millions of dollars in swing states. This burst of activity adds to the evidence that Elon Musk's growing political alliance with Trump, and he's so aligned with Trump that he's willing to fund key efforts to ensure that Donald Trump gets reelected. The committee that Elon Musk is funding is called America PAC. They've spent more than $33 million this summer, and that's just through mid-August. And there are plans to spend millions of millions more between now and November 5th. And the nation, or at least those Jackson 5 lovers, are mourning the death of Tito Jackson. He was an original member of the celebrated pop group, the Jackson 5, and brother of musical superstars Michael and Janet Jackson. He died on Sunday, according to a post on social media. He was 70 years old. His children, he has three sons, announced that it's with a heavy heart that they announced that their beloved father, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Tito Jackson, is no longer with us. The family did not give a cause of death, although some are stating that he died driving from one state to another after suffering a heart attack. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by Dr. Michael Fauntleroy. He's a professor at George Mason University, and Alan Orr is here. He's the founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm. Glad to be in conversation with both of them today. And in hour two, this is National Suicide Prevention Month. That month is recognized every September. It's a time to remember the lives lost to suicide, acknowledge the millions more who have experienced suicidal thoughts, and the many individuals, families, and communities that have been impacted by suicide. In this hour two today, I'm going to be talking to two experts because there's some new federal data out that shows that the suicide rate among Black youth ages 10 to 19 surpassed that of their white peers for the first time. That happened in 2022, increasing 54% since 2018. That's compared to a 17% decrease for white youth. So get this, suicide rates amongst Black youth increasing by 54%, while that of white youth decreasing by 17%. The suicide rate among Black adolescents is increasing, according to this recent Pew Research study, faster than other racial and ethnic groups. Why is that? Why are Black kids killing themselves at such alarming rates? Well, we're going to ask the experts in hour two. Dr. Michael Lindsay is going to join us. He is a professor of social work at NYU's Silver School of Social Work. He's also the doctor that was responsible for leading the Congressional Black Caucus's emergency task force on Black youth suicide and mental health. It was that organization that actually sponsored that research report. And Dr. Lindsay, who was the lead researcher, who's been upfront on this issue of Black suicide rates, is going to join us in hour two. And also Candace Washington. Candace is a licensed social worker. She's a psychotherapist, and she's also someone who has survived a suicide attempt. She's the author of a book called Breathe, Rest, Reflect, and Reset. So these experts are going to help us really unpack and understand why Black suicide rates, something that used to be even taboo in our community. There was this sense that one, we didn't talk about it. It was taboo to even talk about suicide. And there was this misconception or misperception that Black people didn't kill themselves. If you grew up in a certain generation, you'd heard that repeated over and over and over again. We now know that that's false. It was false then, it's false now. And contrary to Black folks or Black youth not killing themselves, Black youth is the fastest growing demographic when you look at suicide increasing rates of suicide. I'm going to talk a lot about what is driving these numbers and what we need to be doing as a community to ensure that Black youth, Black kids, Black people, and all people are safe, and that there are options that they have available to them when they do have suicidal thoughts. So again, September is National Suicide Prevention Month. So it's only fitting that we talk about ways that we can help prevent suicide amongst our most vulnerable youth and young adults. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. You know, we are so close to this November election. We're less than 2 months out. And it's still hard for a lot of people to process why the race is so close, why the polls suggest that on any given day, Kamala Harris is slightly behind Donald Trump, or they're neck and neck in key battleground states. a lot of folks scratching their heads as to how, after all the lies about Haitian immigrants eating pets, the lie that now Taylor Swift has lost $150 million because she endorsed Kamala Harris. The lie after lie after lie, the lies that we saw told during that debate, and just the conduct of Donald Trump, the 34 felony convictions, and all the things that he's done that defy the norms, things that would be disqualifying, absolutely positively disqualifying for so many other candidates. Why did Donald Trump get, I don't know, 70 million votes when he ran before? And why are these polls so close? And some pundits even suggesting that he could win the White House again. Well, one of the things we do hear often is that pundits characterize Trump supporters as having been left behind. Somehow they have been painted as those that are marginalized. But if you really study the trends, if you study the research, if you look at what we can learn from a lot of the Trump voters, we know that those labels are dangerously off base. For one, those labels, the labels of Trump voters being left behind or being marginalized, they just kind of fuel this self-victimization narrative. This really common in a lot of radical right movements. They just drive these conspiracies and support for this ideology. It's kind of this cyclical thing that happens. And most importantly, when you call Trump voters marginalized or left behind, you are neglecting that historically powerful groups such as white people, such as men, such as Christians are overrepresented. I mean, we just know this from history. Looking at Trump voters, these groups are overrepresented among Trump supporters. And we also know that these groups, men, white people, Christians, in many ways remain privileged. They're privileged politically. In many cases, they're privileged economically, and they're privileged culturally. So by any objective standard, Trump's voters are not left behind. They're not stigmatized. They're not marginalized. Those are words that really fit certain demographics in this country. And it would not be white men. That doesn't mean that every white man has economic upward mobility, but it does mean as a group, we know there is something true. There's something very real about the privilege that white men enjoy, because we're watching Trump. He enjoys the ultimate form of white male privilege. There's a recent study done by a noted scholar, and he has a theory. He said, look, a substantial share of white people, men, and the Christian right now, although they belong in the U.S. society and they've carved out a place in this society, many of them in this moment say they are feeling disrespected. They're feeling like they're not being seen or heard. And they're showing that because they are, saying things like white lives matter. Now, objectively, we know they're seen. Objectively, we know they're heard because we look at CEO boards. Look at CEOs, look at the boards of most major corporations. So no doubt white men are very present in this society, and they're still very politically and economically strong. But subjectively, they may feel disrespected or disadvantaged or even neglected. And that just may have to do with the fact that other people are gaining some place in this society. And if you gain a little, if you're part of a minority group and you just gain just a little for that white person that's been so dominant for so long, now all of a sudden you are disrespecting them, you're neglecting them, or you're taking something away from them. And we know Trump has been brilliant at fueling and exploiting these individuals' perceptions of disrespect and neglect. He's maintained and he promises them, these folks who are subjectively feeling left out, that he's going to maintain the inequities that favor privileged groups, which is why the tax cuts for the rich and why so many of Donald Trump's policies favor white billionaires. And unfortunately, so many folks are vulnerable and they fall for this pitch that somehow, they've been left behind, they're being neglected, and Donald Trump is the man that's going to help them out of that situation. We know that instead of trying to fit in, these people, they're trying to stand out. They stress, as I said, that white lives matter. Even when white lives aren't threatened, they defend heteronormative gender roles that don't need defending. And they promote stereotypical Christian right life choices such as traditional marriage and procreation. So I just want to warn journalists and citizens, all of us, everyday people, to be more careful when we are talking about Donald Trump's support. Stop characterizing it and buying into this notion that these supporters are somehow neglected or that they're somehow marginalized. And let's be honest about what is happening. Let's be honest about the fact that a lot of the members of Trump's base are the dominant group who want to remain dominant. That's the reality. Trump voters support an ideology that is racist. We know that because that's what he does. Ideology that's sexist and exclusionary. And backing someone like Donald Trump is not a protest vote because you're left behind or you feel marginalized. Supporting someone like Donald Trump is a vote to maintain the status quo. So, in less than 2 months before this November election, it's so important that all of us are calling a spade a spade. Stay with me when we come forward more today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent. So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle.
Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle. This back-to-school season, Tide and Downy are giving back with $1.5 million in scholarships. Enter to win. No purchase necessary. US/DC 17+. End September 30th. Rules. Tide.com/scholarship/official rules.
Martha was ready to switch to a career in IT.
There's always a need for IT specialists, especially with AI coming out and cybersecurity. It's practically recession-proof.
My Computer Career even provides job placement help.
The career specialists, they're very helpful. They care about you as a person. You're not just a number to them. I would recommend My Computer Career wholeheartedly to anyone.
Take the free career evaluation today. Become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're back, and Dr. Michael Fauntleroy and Alan Orr are here for today's breaking and trending news. All right, Alan, what is up with the Secret Service? This is the second time that someone was able to get close enough to take a shot at Donald Trump. And it's concerning to me because I'm thinking about Kamala Harris when she wins this election, and God willing, she will. Is this the kind of security, staff, and force that she's going to have to deal with?
Well, I think that Vice President Harris, as already clearly a target, has a little bit more control over her schedule and a little bit more deference to the people who are advising her what to do and how she sort of protects herself. So my understanding is that the individual who allegedly was going to make this attempt did not ever have a clear line of sight, wasn't really ever established, so they caught him in enough time. But the golf course was an unscheduled event. They might not have been clearing it appropriately. So I think, in this very difficult time in this country, things that we used to take for granted might need stronger scrutiny. And therefore, things like being on a golf course in that situation may not be allowed anymore or recommended. Not to say that, a former president should be able to play golf, but where they play golf may be more appropriate. And what the activities that the CIA and the Secret Service does may be a little bit more intense. But my understanding is that the staffing is really also low to protect all these individuals during this very difficult time.
No doubt about that, Professor Feinroy. We're hearing about this agency, the Secret Service, being strained because of all these death threats. They're having to protect members of, presidents and former presidents' families that otherwise wouldn't even have Secret Service protection. But this is not a good look for the country. And I agree with Alan. These unscheduled, impromptu, let's go out and play golf makes it more challenging. But the optics on this are bad.
Unmute.
Apologies. There are so many different angles on this that I think have to be strongly considered. Among them is the staffing issue. I saw former FBI Director Andy McCabe today, and he was on television talking about how woefully underfunded the Secret Service has been for years. And when you add to it, as you just pointed out, the increasing number of protectees, and by the way, in a presidential election year, that means two Republican presidential nominees, 2 Republican vice presidential nominees, and in addition to the sitting president and first lady and related family members. So there's staffing issues. There's just problematic in terms of resources. And I also want to pick up on Alan's point regarding this particular golf course. According to some of the reporting I've seen, the Secret Service has expressed concerns about securing that golf course and one that Trump owns in Northern Virginia from the very beginning, in part because there's a road that rides pretty close to 2 of the holes. So you add it all up and it's a real mess. Thankfully, the Secret Service was able to identify this person and shut it down before things got really, really hectic. And also, as Alan pointed out, it appears that the shooter was so far away or didn't have a clear line of sight that it's unlikely from that location that they could have done what they intended to do. Be that as it may, it's a terrible look for the Secret Service and the kind of thing that's only going to ramp up scrutiny of them. Congress has already told, the House of Representatives is already calling for hearings on this, and it's not going to be a good look for the current acting Secret Service director.
Well, the irony, Alan, is after, Trump has been talking about how these governmental agencies have been weaponized against him, whether it's Department of Justice, whether it's the FBI. And it is in these moments when it is very clear that the country, not in a partisan way, but in a bipartisan way, needs to make sure that these agencies have the resources that they need. Because as much as we dislike Donald Trump, no one wants the man to be shot or harmed or injured. That's not a good look for our country. And we're just not a country that, supports that kind of violence against our opponents, our political opponents. But might this send a message to Republicans? All of this, downsize the government, get rid of 50,000 people, have Elon Musk come in and, do some kind of analysis of how to make the government lean and mean, as if he's an expert in that. That's a different story. But this is scary stuff because already we're dealing with a lean organization. But now if Donald Trump gets elected, he's saying he wants to get rid of 50,000 if not more, government employees. Then that would include law enforcement employees that work for the government.
Sure. I don't. So to me, I find him to be, as many have said, unserious, because as soon as this happened, what's the very next thing that he did? He did a fundraiser based on it. So that doesn't sort of speak to me in the nature of someone who's taking the threat serious or taking the concerns for his own safety seriously in that situation. And furthermore, in this situation, now that they've caught the individual, that individual is being prosecuted by a U.S. district attorney who's of Haitian descent. So the story gets a little bit more rich and rich as you sort of follow along about how important our nation, how closely woven our nation is with regards to these things that happen. So the concept of firing people with just maybe a thing because he wasn't able to do it before, and I'm not sure he'll be able to do it again in such a way that it'll legally pass a lot of the tests. Ending some of the departments maybe, but this security thing, I doubt is a little bit beyond him.
Well, to your point, now a man that's railed against the Department of Justice is now having an attempted assassin prosecuted by that same Justice Department that he says is, stacked against him, biased against him, et cetera. So, which is why, it's so dangerous when Trump tries to undermine these institutions, which is what we're seeing happening now in Springfield, Ohio. This town that was dealing with its own tensions very locally has been thrust into the limelight because of J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and these just irresponsible statements about Haitians. And now there's a call for J.D. Vance from a state senator in the state of Ohio for him to step down as their senator. This state senator and others are saying, J.D. Vance, you're dangerous. You're dangerous for the state of Ohio. We do not want you as our U.S. senator. Donald Trump can take you, but the state of Ohio does not want you. When we come forward, we're going to talk more about what's happening in this small town, Springfield, Ohio. And all of these Reagan Republicans are saying Harris and Walz rather than Trump and J.D. Vance. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. The murder trial of 3 former Memphis police officers who are accused in the beating death of a black man, Tyree Nichols, has entered its second week. A Shelby County judge agreed to allow response to resistance forms filled out by the officers to be introduced as evidence after an attempt by defense attorneys to have them suppressed. Former Memphis police officers Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith are on trial for the beating death of Nicholas during a traffic stop in 2023. Former officers Desmond Mills and Emmett Martin are expected to testify in the case after accepting plea deals. Most voters in a new poll say Taylor Swift's endorsement for Vice President Harris has no impact on how they will vote. 6% of respondents say they were more likely to vote for the Democratic presidential nominee after Swift's nod, and 13% said they're less likely to vote for Harris. Meanwhile, 81% said in the NBC News Ipsos poll that the superstar's endorsement had no influence on how they would vote. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
In Lincoln Heights, watch for an accident in the center divide with a 20-minute backup from Griffith Park Drive on the 5 South before Mission Road. In Compton, 2 right lanes remain blocked with an accident with over 45 minutes of heavy delays from 3rd Street as 2 right lanes remain blocked on the 710 South after Alondra Boulevard. Hollywood traffic is up to 25 minutes running heavy on the 101 South between Hollywood Boulevard and Mission Road. Laurel Canyon Boulevard at Webb Avenue is still closed as crews are still cleaning up an earlier trash truck fire back in Sunland. Watch for stop delays in the area. Meanwhile, in North Hollywood, police activity involving a shooting investigation remains having Victory Boulevard closed in both directions between Highway 170 and Laurel Canyon Boulevard, as well as the Victory Boulevard off-ramp until 7 o'clock tonight.
Need to hire? You need Indeed. Their end-to-end solution helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all year round. Schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from your Indeed dashboard. Learn more by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congratulations to Asia Wilson of the Las Vegas Aces. The Aces center became the first player in the 27-year history of the WNBA to score 1,000 points in a season. Wilson scored 29 points Sunday against the Connecticut Sun to reach the milestone. J.K. Dobbins is the first running back in the Chargers' 64-year history to rush for 100 yards or more in the first 2 games of the regular season. Dobbins ran for 131 yards in Week 1 against the Raiders and 135 yesterday at Carolina. The Rams are worried again about All-Pro wide receiver Cooper Kupp after the Rams lost at Arizona Sunday Cup was wearing a boot cast to protect his left foot and ankle. Cup missed the final 8 games last season with an ankle injury. Florida A&M is the only HBCU school ranked among the top 25 in this week's Associated Press Division I AA poll. The 2-1 Rattlers are ranked number 20. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to number 1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today. Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580.
October 2nd is California Clean Air Day. It's your chance to ride Metro for free. You'll be helping make the air cleaner and our roads less crowded. Let's clear the air together and make Los Angeles healthier. Check out metro.net for more info.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 12.7%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/30/24.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're back, and Alan Orr and Dr. Michael Fauntleroy are here. And in hour 2, we're going to be talking about a very heavy subject, but definitely one that we need to spend more time on, and it's suicide, because September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and the numbers as it relates to Black youth are startling. The increase in the number of Black youth that are committing suicide, I think you're going to be shocked to hear the number, how many kids, how many young people are choosing to end and to take their own lives. We have 2 experts going to join us in hour 2 to help us better understand what's happening with our young people and what we can do as a community to better support individuals with mental health issues and those who have thought about suicide. But Alan, let's talk about Springfield, Ohio. So J.D. Vance thought, I don't know, be a good idea to make up lies about Haitians because, look, all Black folks are savages, and yes, they eat their pets. And then Donald Trump repeats it on the debate stage, and they continue this lie. And then J.D. Vance is on a news show yesterday, and he's taking this lie so far that he acknowledges that he made it up. And then when he's challenged and like, okay, so you're telling us on national television that you just made this up, he got defensive and started trying to backpedal. But we learned a lot about J.D. Vance during that interview, and now there's state senators and other folks in the state of Ohio saying, you aren't fit to be in office, and we want you to step down. I'm surprised there hasn't been a larger chorus of journalists, pundits, elected officials, and just citizens in Ohio calling for him to step down.
Well, that's the power of money, I believe, in a little bit of a way. 33 bomb threats in the Springfield area since this has occurred. A college gone remote, 2 elementary schools shut down, 2 hospitals shut down, a building burned down, the courthouse closed. So all of those things don't impact just Haitians that are there. It impacts all of Springfield, Ohio, and the economy there. And so it's very costly on them to have this going on. And the thing in this situation is that J.D. Vance, being a senator of Ohio, could have called someone to verify his facts before he shared the story. And in no other world would that be acceptable. If he was a lawyer, he would be in trouble with the court for perpetuating such a harmful thing. And he might have some liability at the end of the day if someone gets harmed in this manner, beyond just being de-elected from the Ohioans, who are probably fed up with him at this point because it's become such a national story, because Haitians have been in the United States for centuries. Large population in Miami, Florida, never heard of this. New York, never heard of it. Chicago, never heard of it. So it seems to be even a fictional story. And then the people who he heard it from are the people on Facebook were saying, a friend of a friend told me, right? That's an indicator that it's an automatic lie. So that sort of shows you the danger of J.D. Vance. And, you know, from the biblical studies, if you can't handle the small things, you definitely can't handle the big things. And seeing that someone was going to take a shot at the president, former President Trump this weekend, that would make J.D. Vance the president. We can't have someone leading our nation with such a low moral character and putting so many lives at risk, for the sake of just running for the office, and then said, I just did it for the show.
But here's a good example, Dr. Fontroy, of how Republicans are willing to go along with the Trump Vance machine, even when it's harmful to them. The mayor of this town is a Republican. This is Ohio. This is ruby red Ohio, outside of Cleveland, Cincinnati, and maybe Columbus. I'm not sure. You're not talking about bastions of Democratic elected leaders. You're talking about Republican mayors and county executives and a Republican state legislature. So here was a town that was making an economic comeback because, in part, it's Haitian immigrants who were working and adding to this economy, gets turned on its head. And you don't have an outcry from Republicans saying enough is enough. You're harming the very cities that we're trying to help, the very states that we're elected to represent. And now Trump's saying Springfield, Ohio, and Aurora, Colorado are going to be the first 2 cities where he sends in his deportation squad to deport all of the Haitians in Springfield and all of the Venezuelans in Aurora. Why? Where are the Republicans?
So this is a great example of what I think plagues our country right now, and that is civic ignorance. So look, I'm not expecting everybody to be up on immigration policy and regulation, but it needs to be noted that the Haitians to which Trump and Vance have referred are here legally with temporary protected status, TPS. And as you pointed out, they have been doing a tremendous job, keeping that and developing that economy in that city and in that region. And most of the reporting I've seen suggests that they've been more than just a credit to the community. They've actually put a lot of energy into making it more than it's ever been, or certainly more than it's been recently. Yes, some Republicans have spoken out. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has come out and talked about how irresponsible this is. But a lot of people in Ohio have been sort of super quiet around all this. And to me, that speaks to a bigger problem, namely the fact that some people are so dedicated to winning elections that they'll tell any lie or do anything unethical to get there. And you have 2 people at the top of the Republican ticket right now that are the living embodiment of that. Donald Trump has won the White House already on a raft of lies. And he's trying to get back there now, and he's struggling, and he's amping up the lies even more, and has a running mate in J.D. Vance who is every bit as cynical as he is. And his cynicism is sort of cloaked in this Yale University law degree and some of the other sort of imprimaturs of sophistication that he comes with. but he is just as bad news in that regard. And I just hope that the voters will remember that when he runs for re-election in 2028.
Yeah, that's what's so galling and so disappointing about these types of politicians, Alan. The people see the Republicans, not just Democrats, but Republicans in the state of Ohio see the harm that the Republicans at the top of the ticket are causing to their city. But yet we'll see these same people go to the ballot box this November, 2 years from now, and vote for these same people over and over again. That's why you can't get away from, acknowledging, as I said at the top of the show, that a lot of Trump supporters are voting for Trump to maintain the status quo, to maintain their white hierarchy. It doesn't matter if other people are collateral damage and get hurt along the way. They just want to make sure that the inequities that we have in our system are maintained, because overall and in general, this structure inures to the benefit of white people and white men in particular. It's really, really disgusting. And you're right, the governor of Ohio did speak out, but we did not see enough Republicans on those Sunday shows yesterday talking about how reprehensible this was and how unfit J.D. Vance is to lead the state and definitely lead the country. When we come forward, I want to talk about these voters, these Sandy Hook kids who are now 18 years old, many of whom are going to be voting for the first time in an election. They got a choice to make, obviously, about who they are going to support. For some of us, the choice seems just crystal clear and obvious, but there might be, young people who have a difference of opinion about where this country should go. Also, Ronald Reagan supporters. We've seen McCain supporters. We've seen the Cheney family. We've seen Mitt Romney supporters, and now, the standard bearer of republicanism is Ronald Reagan. At least that's what a lot of Republicans will tell you. And even his supporters are saying, we know that it's time to cut ties with Donald Trump. When we come forward, KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
And that chill in the air means one thing. It's truck season!
Just 5 more minutes.
No snoozing. You've got so much to do. So do it all in a Chevy Colorado or Silverado, including the HD or class-leading 440-mile range of the Silverado EV.
Wait, what? Are you talking?
Yes! Picture it. Work, play, hauling gear, off-roading. A Chevy truck can take whatever you can throw at it, including tailgating in an actual tailgate!
I mean, homecoming is just around the corner. Oh, and showing up in a new truck.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Get things done and look good doing it.
Okay, I'm up. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Without offering me a ride? That's cold.
Head to your local Chevy dealer and get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 and Colorado pickups when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 24.5%. Plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available, at least in some of the offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/30/24.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Alan, you are our immigration specialist, and you are reminding us that 25 to 30% of Haitian voters in Florida have voted for or support Donald Trump. Do we know what that demographic of folks, those Haitians that are in Florida, not Springfield, Ohio, like how are they on this issue? Might this move them away from Trump, or are they solidly Republican and it doesn't matter?
So that was the numbers from the last election, because that's all we have so far available. But they're mobilizing now to vote against Trump. The point of it was that he killed himself. Many people from the Caribbean are maybe Trump supporters because of Catholicism, and they believe that they're voting a one-issue voter on abortion. So he's jeopardizing. And when you think about the Haitian population, you're talking about 100,000 votes or so in Florida. It's a large number, not a small number, to be 30 to 25% of voters there. So that's part of the issue now, that they're moving away from Trump because of these laws in this one small town in Springfield. In Florida, which is a really costly place. New York may not be on the table, but Florida is on the table, and that could sway the votes in Florida.
Well, that's incredible. And we're talking about Sandy Hook, Dr. Fauntleroy, these kids who were in that classroom, some of them 6 years old, one of the worst mass shootings at a school in this country's history. And now these kids are 18, and many of them thought that what happened to them would never, ever happen again. But we've seen 64 planned shootings just since 2013 alone. What do you make of these young people who are now living in a world where gunshot violence, being killed by a gun is the leading cause of death, in front of, car accidents and cancer? That's just startling to me.
And it also reveals how vulnerable we continue to be as long as our streets are awash in guns. And when I say streets, I'm talking about streets in every corner of the country. There are more guns in America than there are people. And unfortunately, these kids who are now 18, and I teach 18-year-olds. I'll be with them tomorrow morning, right? I see this. The world that they're living in is so different from the world in which I was an 18-year-old college freshman. And so, my first year as a college student coincided with my first year as a voter, and Jesse Jackson was running for the presidency. And things felt like they were pregnant with opportunity. Well, now, the world in which they find themselves is one that's pregnant with all kinds of anxiety and potential for violence, and it's just not as fun being a kid. And it's my hope that those who survived Sandy Hook use this opportunity to tell their story, remind people about all of this, and try to organize and try to get people moving in the right direction on this issue.
Yeah, it's really sad when you think about, we know the PTSD that many of these kids must suffer, like on a daily, being reminded when you have that Georgia shooting happen, some of them I'm sure have not been able to even complete their education because of the trauma from, being a part of such a deadly shooting, which brings me, Alan, to Ronald Reagan voters. Mm-hmm. I mean, we are seeing voters from some of the most conservative families and conservative elected officials saying that they cannot support the Republican Party as it currently is constituted. And not just saying we won't vote for the president, because we've seen that before, the never Trumpers in previous elections who said we're staunch Republicans, we're not going to vote for Donald Trump, we're going to vote for our U.S. senator, our congressperson, blah, blah, blah. But these, they're not never Trumpers. These are full-blown supporters of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and saying we have a clear choice in this election, and we're not going to sit it out. We're going to vote for the Democrats in the election. That's huge.
Well, it's masterful, and Republicans, former people who also have worked for Trump are against him, right? Even his wife, you don't see his wife on the platform when you sort of think about who's sort of supporting him. But what I was a Reagan Republican until I was better educated and exposed to different things that he did sort of ruin, such as public education, the very thing that Mr. Farquhar is here for, people access, but and AIDS, among those things that are super detrimental to our community, crime bills. But anyway, to not specify that, when these Republicans come out and say that he is a threat to the democracy, hopefully people who are on the bedrock will listen, because within the Republican Party, next to Jesus is Ronald Reagan, because Ronald Reagan is the person who made everything work for them, and they think it made it well. He was the first movie star president, right? And in every way, Trump tries to model himself after that big support that Reagan received then and still receives today in many places.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you said next to, I've had this image of a Black family, like there's the crucifixion, there's a picture of white Jesus, right? And there's probably Dr. King or someone like that. So maybe in white Republican homes, there's a picture of Jesus and a picture of Ronald Reagan on the wall. All very, very possible. Elon Musk, Professor, is really showing up in a big way for Donald Trump. These are two guys that seemingly hated each other, oftentimes in battles. But now Elon Musk seems to be all in, even so much so I'm sure you saw that post over the weekend. He made this really, really reprehensible post about Taylor Swift, and his own daughter had to take him to task for doing that. But he's raising money for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is talking about putting him to use in his administration. And he controls a huge social media platform. So if Trump can cause Fox News and X, which was formerly Twitter, and other media organizations to buy into his rhetoric and his ideology, that's very dangerous, because we know that's what the strong man, Viktor Orban, that he praises, that was a part of his playbook. Like, take over the media, get the media in Hungary to support him, and then basically turn the media over to become state-run media outlets.
Yeah, absolutely. And Elon Musk is just as transactional as Donald Trump is. It doesn't appear that his belief system is well aligned with liberal democracy as we understand it, small L, small d. I like to remind people that Elon Musk is a beneficiary of apartheid and comes out of a particular sort of worldview growing up in South Africa and coming from a family that for generations sort of benefited from the white supremacist cultural structure there. And so he is very much aligned in that regard with former President Trump and people of that ilk. So it is very dangerous, and it is also an opportunity for people to think twice about how they want to spend their time and their money. Do you really want to support X? Do you really want to support Tesla? Understand that when you do that, you're supporting somebody who is not working in your interest at all. In fact, seems to want to take over the world for himself.
Yeah, real quickly, Alan, government shutdown looming, 15 days. Mike Johnson can't seem to get it together, can't lead. His caucus can't lead the House. Tried to get this bill passed that would, I don't know, give us some voting laws that we didn't need, that are redundant of laws that we already have. And his own party said no. Of course, Democrats said no. What happens? Republicans know that they are going to be blamed if the government does shut down. So Mike Johnson is going to find himself back in a deal, I suspect, with Hakeem Jeffries leading the charge.
Well, we were hopeful of that. But I think also, remember, before I do that, I just have to say Elon Musk, immigrant, right? So remind ourselves when we start bad talking immigrants that he's an immigrant, benefited from the system, may not have done it the right way, made a joke about it. The House is in disarray. And we need an election to sort of clean the House out and get real elected people who want to be Congress people and get things done. And that's been a problem since the very beginning. Mr. McCarthy, he also is someone who backed the whole story about the Haitians in Springfield. So that shows you the type of leadership he is and the type of Christian he is, along the same way that he isn't even able to back off of that or the president in any way. So I think we're heading for a bad collapse right now, and they want to ruin the economy to be against it. Now I'm giving everything to Harris. I mean, he rewrote a report about the withdrawal from Afghanistan in which they replaced Biden's name and put Harris's name in 236 places. So unserious person, unserious leadership. I don't even think he's a leader. His party's telling him what they're going to do.
Yeah, clearly Donald Trump is behind the scenes pulling the puppet strings, and he is just that, a puppet. Real quickly, Dr. Fauntleroy, Tito Jackson, loved by anyone that ever loved the Jackson Five, had to love Tito, drummer, very accomplished drummer, dead apparently from a heart attack at the age of 73, sons and multiple grandchildren. What's your fondest memory of Tito Jackson?
I'm now thinking about the Jackson 5 Christmas album, and which is legendary in households of a certain age. And just think about how he was an underrated musician, I would say, sort of lost in the mix with his brothers Michael and so I think and Jermaine. I should also add Jermaine. He was somebody who appeared to be the rock of the band, and someone who appeared to have a relatively normal life outside of this, notwithstanding the super large experience in which he found himself.
Yeah, I was reading some of the things that he had written, some of the things he had said. He was always very, very respectful and loving towards his brother Michael. I mean, he was just like you would want or expect a big brother to be. Of course, that's the public part that we saw. We don't know what happened behind the scenes, but he just said some very loving, very kind things about his baby brother, Michael Jackson. Clearly a loss between him and Frankie Beverly and so many others that we've lost in this year, but we pay tribute to them and thank them for the contributions that they have made to the arts. Again, our prayers to Tito Jackson and the entire Jackson family. When we come forward, we're going to be talking about suicide, very heavy topic, but a topic that we don't talk enough about in the Black community, and we need to, because rates of suicides are going up for Black youth in particular. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.